February 15th work session. I want to welcome everybody that's in the room and everybody watching. If everybody would please stand and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, so we're going to start off the work session by public comments. The way this works is people have 3 minutes to speak. Our new clerk, Kim, say hello to everybody.
Hello.
She's going to keep a timer, so when your 3 minutes is up, the alarm will go off, and we just want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know we had one request for somebody on Zoom. Andrew, is anybody in the waiting room?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, we'll let that person go first, and then we'll ask if there's anybody else here to speak.
They're with us. Chris, can you hear us? Hey, Chris, can you hear us? She's with us, but I'm not sure why she's not responding, Judge.
Alrighty, so let's go. If you want to work with her for a minute, Andrew, and we'll go ahead and, is there anybody in the audience that would like to have public comment? Please step forward. State your name, please.
Hello, Judge and
Good morning.
magistrates. Good morning. Thank you for this time. As you all probably know, but the public may not know, and some of those who are watching, one of the reasons that we're here today is because there had been a civil action filed in circuit court, and it was deemed that additional testimony and evidence was taken at the last meeting to which you all approved Mr. Tierney's agriculture to industrial. You all also based finding facts during that meeting too. Judge Wingate recently did his findings on that and said that it was basically the fiscal court knew that its decision to open the record for only the application supporters to testify and answer questions violated the due process rights of Goddard and other interested parties. Therefore, the fiscal court acted erroneously, arbitrarily, capriciously, and contrary to well-established law on August the 22nd of 2022, and thus, when it passed Ordinance 8-2022, accordingly, the court remands this matter back to fiscal court. So now it's back in your all's hands, and it's my understanding that it's become agriculture. I would ask that additional testimony, possibly in a public hearing, because there has been a lot of additional information and evidence that I think has been brought to light since that. There's been a lot of changes to the environment and to the watershed. The one main concern that I have had is that for the last 2.5 years, up until just this past week, there has been a whole ram noise, and for those that you all don't know, it's an industrial whole ram, and it's like bam, 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 that would start from 7:15 in the morning until sometimes 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. This was Monday through Friday for 2.5 years. So it's been just, nerve-wracking. I've started having panic attacks. I even called the deputy, Mr. Kennedy, saying, this is Monday morning, it's 7:45, and I'm calling you right now, and I was crying, I was in a panic attack, because I didn't know how I was going to face another week of this after 2.5 years. My grandson's nervous. Everybody that comes to our farm says, oh my God, what is wrong with how they allow this to happen? They also are wondering how it's allowed to happen that a retention reservoir has been placed right on my fence line that has cut me off from my property for a couple of years. And it's caused a pond to pond up. Water scientists or specialists came out and took a look at it. They're concerned about the integrity of the dam because they said normally the spillway runs off to the side, but this spillway runs, and they're saying it's possibly undercutting the integrity of the dam because it runs along the baseline. Now, there will be a pond, but there has been at least 6 now new sinkholes that have appeared in my road. I talked to them about that, because I know a lot about sinkholes and falling in, but you see what you see on TV with things falling through. And I asked them, could a sinkhole, something fall through? And they said, you need to get in touch with a civil engineer, come look at this situation, because it could be a dangerous situation, and hopefully when that thing fails, you won't be on the other side of it. Well, that kind of perked my ears up right then.
You gotta get your
Yes.
times up, so.
All right,
I wanna be respectful, so.
Can I just ask one more thing? If I had been allowed to talk, the Otis, there was an Otis letter that Sherry Sebastian had actually seen, the February 21st, 2020 Otis letter, and that was one reason that you actually said you wanted to see an evidentiary hearing. Well, there was evidently a December 2019, a Otis letter that said stuff like, any and all improvements which change the runoff characteristics, volumes, velocity, direction, etc., must be reviewed and approved prior to field work.
Your 3 minutes is up. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
towards
Yeah.
Woodford County. So I ask you to please look for the Otis letter and February 21st, 2020. He lists 17 points, and that was not allowed the last time, so I'm
Thank you.
reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience, public comment? All right, Andrew, do we have somebody on Zoom?
Yes, Ms. Schindler's with us.
All right, Ms. Schindler, you have 3 minutes, okay?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay. Envision, I appreciate this opportunity to be able to give comments, and I'm speaking on behalf of Envision Franklin County. Wanted to speak to our support of your item agenda about protecting our waterways. Envision thinks that that's a really important subject, and we're delighted that the court is taking this up, and we stand ready to support you in whatever efforts that you're exploring to support protecting our important waterways in Franklin County. Secondly, I wanted to speak to the agenda item about the Duncan Road, first reading of the Duncan Road ordinance for rezoning. We request that a public hearing be held on this topic. We recognize that the court includes some new members who maybe aren't up to speed about this topic. Think that before informed vote can take place, that the record needs to be reviewed thoroughly, and new information that has come up needs to be addressed. We think this would also be a good opportunity to point out errors in the existing record, including missing documents and untruth testimony. We also think that it's important for the court to understand what's happening out there right now. We have several questions about that. For example, why is Tierney, the developer, currently engaged in industrial site prep on his land that is currently zoned ag, since Judge Wingate overturned the industrial rezoning of this court? How can he be conducting industrial site prep when, to my knowledge, a site development plan has not been approved? I was sitting at a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting last fall when the Planning and Zoning Commissioners discussed how they would like to review any site development plan that was going to be approved. So maybe they could deal with issues like buffers or other measures to help protect neighbors from nuisance or dangers. And they had not seen it. At that meeting, they voted to ask Fiscal Court to allow them to review the site development plan. To my knowledge, I have not seen that topic on your agenda, nor do I know if you ever received the request from the Planning and Zoning Commission about reviewing the site development plan. All while the developer is out there actively ram-hoeing, moving dirt, and creating hazards for the neighbors, including being pelleted with dust pellets when it rains because of the huge piles of dirt that are out there. We really ask that the court get their arms around what is going on out there. If all the applicable permits have been addressed, if during the time when he was rezoned industrial before the judge's order overturned it, were all of the applicable permits filed and adhered to. I think it still feels like a little bit of a Wild West out there, and Envision just requests that you look into this and ensure that our laws are being fulfilled and our citizens are being protected. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your comments, Mrs. Schindler. Any other public comments? No other public comments seen. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of give a quick judge's report. It's been busy. I think a lot of you all know that. A lot of us went to the KCJEA conference. We learned a lot about new things that are coming on and grants that are available. They had, on the 8th of February, they had a really nice proclamation for Hank Hancock for all his years of service for the Commonwealth. That was well attended. There was KMCA Day at the Capitol. Most of us were at, where we got the opportunity to talk to, people about our concerns. Deputy Kennedy attended the Green and Gold Day at the Capitol on the 9th. I was unable to attend, so I appreciate that. I had a meeting with the Deputy Secretary, Chief Engineer for our road department. That went well, kind of talked about some of the roads and ditching and bridges and things like that. We are working, Squire Sebastian's requested, and we're working on coming up with a date for us to do a road trip around the county so we can look at concerns in each district that you all might have or anybody has. We had a really good solid waste committee meeting. Squire Wisman attended that. That went very well. I had Mitzi Jeviden attend the ribbon cutting at the Elkhorn Middle School. They have a new CART program. It's kind of encouraging kids to show kindness and positivity, and so they reward them with things and gifts. So she was able to go to that because I was unable to. I had something else going on. We have a new building maintenance supervisor started yesterday, I believe, Greg Fry. He's going to try to stop by?
He's gonna try to stop by.
Okay. We had a water heater break in the fire station, so he's busy, so it's all good. And then help me welcome Kim Cox to her first meeting as our clerk here. Also went to the school board the other night and swore in the 5th board member. They were one short and they took applications, so went to that the other night and did that. And then just remind everybody that today is our kickoff event at the Lakeview Park for our plan over there. That's what I have in my judge's report, and I believe Mr. John Mitchell is in attendance to talk about our road department. Good morning, John.
Morning.
Good to see you.
You too. Yeah, pretty good stretch of 2 weeks, I guess. After some dry weather, we did get some stuff done that needed to be done. We've been waiting on some dry weather. We did do a pretty good retaining wall project down on Steel Branch that had washed out pretty bad, so we got that fixed, luckily. There was no big blowouts. That looks good. It worked out good. Just regular patching. And the lovely windstorm came last week, so we were about 3 days cleaning that up. A few more today we're starting on, and we had a few extras here and there. A couple last night, really. But, sounds like there's more coming, so we'll get prepared for that. That's usually the way it goes.
Yeah, good deal. Does anybody have any questions for John Mitchell?
I do just one quick.
Go ahead, Squire Sebastian.
When's the blacktop plant open back up?
It depends. It's usually 1st of May, somewhere in there.
Okay, all right. Just checking if they've given you some
Yeah.
idea if it's gonna be late April.
Yeah, depends on how much work they've got going on, really. That's what he's telling me.
All right, thank you.
And then, John, you want to bring everybody up to speed on where we are with the new road department? Timeline, I guess, maybe?
Yeah, so I don't know, I guess we're still waiting on another meeting coming up, and hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks, see what I haven't heard.
Nail down numbers a little closer to what we were looking for.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna.
So basically, at that point, once Codell comes back with some numbers and things like that, I guess we'll kind of get together as a court and figure out what we're going to do, and we're ready to put it out for bid or not, and we'll go from there. So. Good deal. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. All righty, this next agenda item for work session was requested from Squire Wisman, so I'm going to let Squire Wisman take it.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you for the court's willingness to hear and entertain this discussion. I think all of us are aware that the streams are, and the river and the streams in our community are a source of activity and a truly lifeblood of this community. And as yet, to my knowledge, we have no active protections. We have a small manual that is stormwater procedures that is effectively looking after post-construction and during construction, but we have nothing that really addresses flooding issue concerns in our community or aspects of access for recreation to our rivers and streams. I know it's been discussion at the court in the past. And least of all, we have really nothing that actively looks at the water quality and the health and vibrancy of our streams in this community over a long period of time. So spoke with a few members of the court about concerns that we need to start actively addressing these things, and thought a best place to start would be to bring in some folks that are already looking and actively at stream preservation, ecology, general conservation in Franklin County. So I'm going to ask for a short presentation by Jesse Hancock and Will Adams. Jesse went to high school together here, so she's a native that everyone pretty well knows, and well, we've known each other for what, 15 years now. But wanted to ask them, Jesse is the executive director of Bluegrass Land Conservancy, and Will is now general counsel and director of strategic initiatives, right? So wanted to ask them to make a presentation about some of the concerns that they're already actively looking at along the Elkhorn Creek, and maybe some recommendations on land conservation, PDR programs, other things that we could look at actively in the future. So thank you guys for coming. And
I'm going to say welcome before you all start, because we have an agenda, 10, 15 minutes if you can. If there's more material than that, then we can put a committee together and have you all come back. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not trying to cut you short. But
Yeah, that's no problem. We'll try
Thank
to
you
keep
for coming.
our presentation to about 10 minutes so you guys can ask some questions if you want.
Thank you.
And if we want to do a follow-up, we can.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. As Eric said, my name is Jessie, this is Will. We are with the Bluegrass Land Conservancy. We are a nonprofit land trust that works around central Kentucky. We have about 26 counties in our service area. Franklin County is one of them. If you want to pass those out to everybody. We brought some materials just so you can read later. It's a little bit of our background.
Thanks.
We work with landowners on an individual basis to do voluntary conservation easements on their property. Most of the land we conserve is active farmland. We do conserve a lot of land that is on waterways, and with our voluntary conservation easements, the landowners still own the property, they still live there, they still farm the land, they can still sell it, pass it down to their descendants if that's what they wish to do. They just voluntarily donate or perhaps get purchased some of their development rights on their property. They still maintain some of those dependent upon the property, and they're negotiated on an individual basis. They're very flexible documents, and we have seen many communities around the Bluegrass ask us to come in and or use conservation easements as a way to help with community planning, long-term visions for how to conserve some of the most important areas of their community. The best known and the best talked about, I think, is Fayette County. They have a purchase of development rights program, which purchases easements from landowners. They utilize a program through the federal government that pays for half of the easement value from federal government and half of the easement value from the local government. Historically, that's the only way that you've been able to really purchase easements around the United States, is that you can access federal funds for half of the value of the easement, and that you have to get local funds for the other half of the value. That has changed in the last couple of years, and the federal government now allows for the donation of a value of an easement to be the match value for the purchase of the easement. So what we're talking about here is a landowner coming to Bluegrass Land Conservancy and saying, we would like to conserve our farm as farmland or natural land forever, and we would like to do that via an easement. And we're able to say to them, we can either give you a tax deduction for that, for the full value of your development rights, or now there's the possibility that we could apply you to a program where you could actually get cash and get money for doing that easement. What that looks like now for us is that we can offer this to counties that have never been able to utilize these programs before because there hasn't been a pool of local funding to be able to make that match. So there are a couple of programs we can use to do that. One of them is farmland-based, and the other one is area-based. And we right now are looking at applying a project in Franklin County within the Elkhorn Creek corridor for federal funding. I'm going to let Will talk a little bit about the details of that, but what we are trying to do is to request $10 million from the federal government to be able to use in Franklin County within the Elkhorn Creek corridor to purchase easements. So that $10 million would go into our local community to local landowners for doing land conservation along the Elkhorn Creek.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you to the court for allowing us to be here. As Jesse mentioned, this program, there are two federal programs that we one we're actively working with now in some other locations, and this Regional Conservation Partnership Program that we plan to apply for in Franklin County as well as some other areas. With the individualized one that we're working on in Woodford County right now, it's really a farm-by-farm basis. We help hold the landowner's hand through the process, but really we're applying one farm at a time to this program. And that's a little intensive. It works well, and we're happy to be doing it. But this Regional Conservation Partnership Program run through the USDA is really about landscape scale protection, and that's what we like to do. Putting protections on a piece of property in isolation doesn't really give you the conservation value that you get from conserving a block. And even if it's not every parcel in a block, if you reach a critical mass, then you're making a landscape scale change and a watershed scale change. We're talking about water preservation. Water is impacted by the land, and so preserving the land in a manner that provides riparian protections, water filtration, reduces the runoff that would be associated with development. It's going to impact the water too. And so the Regional Conservation Partnership Program has kind of two buckets of money. One is for general applications. The other is reserved for what the federal government calls critical conservation areas. And we're fortunate that our entire service area is covered by a Mississippi Basin critical conservation area with a focus on water quality. So we can apply in both buckets, depending on how the project looks. So that kind of gives us an opportunity to go after multiple projects at the same time. We also find ourselves in a generational opportunity here. When Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act last year, they included a tremendous increase in funding for these programs. They were lumping around at a couple $100 million a year, which sounds like big dollars, but when you consider 50 states, 200 million spread out, and what it costs to purchase the acreage, to purchase the rights on the acreage, it doesn't go very far. The Inflation Reduction Act over the next 4 years will increase that funding by about $8 billion. So 4 years from now, it ramps up, but 4 years from now, we're looking at close to $4 billion in that 1 year alone. And that spread nationwide will have a much bigger impact. So we're really trying to structure these applications and get them ready. We may not get everything we ask for in the first year, but we will get progressively more in the following years.
May I ask Will a question? He
Yes.
just mentioned loan. You just said the word loan. So is this a loan?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, you did, you just said loan.
Did I say what? I'm sorry.
You did. So I'm just,
Maybe he meant loan year, like in that 1 year.
Possibly.
loan.
1 year alone, yes.
Yeah.
okay.
That's what I said.
I'm just trying to, I heard you say loan and I
Yeah,
was
he
like,
said loans.
that may,
So with the individual process, it's a 50-50 match, federal government and the donation, as Jesse was saying. With RCPP, there's a slight complication in that USDA takes a little bit of so if we have a $10 million application, it's actually a $20 million project because they're only paying for half of they're purchasing half. They take 23 to 30% of the financial support, $10 million, to cover their overhead because there's a lot of technical work that has to go on in the background. And so we have to come up with a match for that $2.3 to $3 million on a $10 million federal investment. And so that gets a little bit tricky, and that's where we're looking for partners either fundraising opportunities or landowners who may wish to donate their land, their conservation easement entirely, because that can be counted towards the match.
And we do have, within the Elkhorn Creek watershed, we do have some landowners who've already said that they would be willing to donate conservation easements as part of the match, which is really fortunate. And we would also be interested in talking to the Fiscal Court about the possibility of helping with some of the cost of the project, if the project were to get funded, maybe on an easement by easement basis. And that's something we can follow up with in committee if we want to discuss that a little bit more. It's also really important with these programs. I'll just plug, I know you guys are getting into your planning process for your comprehensive plan. The language in local comprehensive plans that supports conservation is what we use to justify conservation easements in an area to the federal government. So having language within your comprehensive plan in a county is what allows us to go to the federal government and say, there's local support for this. We would like to apply for funding for this community because they've put this in their comprehensive plan. They've said that they support conservation, that it's important to, conserve their rural areas for historic reasons or waterway reasons, whatever it is that the community decides. And in fact, we're dealing right now with a couple of communities who in Kentucky where we would like to do projects, but they don't have that language in their comprehensive plan. So we don't know that we're going to be able to really apply any projects there. So that is a really important consideration.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the magistrates?
I've got several questions. I'd like for these maybe come back at a different time because there's no need to run it. You made some comments that I'd like to follow up on, which I might keep on coming up.
That's fine, and you also, our contact information is located within those annual reports that we gave you, so if you want to reach out individually via email, we're happy to send more information or program information if it's specific about the programs that we're looking to apply.
I'll just mention the Bluegrass Land Conservancy is an independent nonprofit, but you're one of the only accredited organizations in the community, which means they have an endowment effectively to monitor and enforce their easement programs that a lot of nonprofits, including the one that I work with, have opportunities for easement programs and PDR and otherwise, but they're one of the only accredited in this region, so they are actively expanding programs. Could you give us some ideas on, on sort of next steps? We're in a process that should be completed in a couple of months, 4 or 5, with a comprehensive plan. My thought is the Fiscal Court can consider a goal or priority statement that can inform the comprehensive plan about future actions that we can start doing planning. I think, Will, you mentioned to me before, there's a grant program that will be available next year that just closed last week that we could actively use for looking at watershed. The entirety of Franklin County is this watershed, and for anyone watching on television and otherwise, this is a voluntary program, but the Fiscal Court could look at opportunities like this to define where we want future access to waterways for recreational purposes, but we can do flood mitigation. We can also look at just generally the quality of the water of our streams and how we protect that by asking property owners that want to maintain a forested landscape on their property in perpetuity to keep that helps filtration, filter waters and that kind of thing. So it's a holistic picture, if you will, of the entire county that we probably need to go after. My thought is probably initially our court can come up with a goal statement or vision statement that we can adopt to help inform the comprehensive plan, and then really kind of get into some of the working. Would you recommend that process, or how would you think?
I would, and some other counties that we're working in on some of these projects, they have utilized, it's a Division of Water Non-Point Source Protection Grant, 319H is how it's also referred to. Kind of one of the main uses for that grant is to create a watershed plan. Often an engineer is consulted. A very comprehensive document that's generated that establishes what are the conditions, what are the pollutants, and some strategies to fix it. Now that doesn't implement those strategies, but then you've got your plan on how to move forward, and that's a very good tool to have, and makes working in some of these programs a lot more effective, along with the comprehensive plan.
And it opens up the community to then request grant money through the 319 program. Once you have that plan in place, you can then go back to the program and ask for grant money.
Squire
I got brief questions, just so I can formulate some more questions later. Okay, did I understand you correctly in saying that once you put your farm in there, it's in there forever?
That's true. Yes.
So
they're
then
permanent
it-
conservation easements.
So I can ask a lot of questions attached to that.
Of course, yeah.
So, I won't, but I could.
We can actually
For
send-
example, if the Corps of Engineers come in here and decided they need to build a dam to preserve and to create a watershed or a flood control or whatever, they couldn't do it.
Well, so conservation easements are permanent documents similar to any other kind of utility easement on your land or any other kind of like mineral easement. They can, I mean, your land can still be affected by the federal government through a taking. So, I mean, we can't like.
They
through
could condemn your
Through a
land.
condemnation process. So we still, but the problem with that is that typically they try to avoid conservation easement lands because the federal government has already said through accepting the conservation easement, they're saying that the conservation of this property is in the better public good. That there are qualities of this property that conserving is for the better public good. And so if you come in with a condemnation process, you have to prove that that is also for the better public good. And then they have to refund the portion of the money, the value that was given of the conservation easement. Even though, like, it's not developable,
So who's
they have to refund the development to
So
us.
all this leads into other questions. We ain't got all day, so I'm not gonna ask them.
It's very
Okay.
complicated, I'll just say they
Yes, it
typically
is.
avoid.
Yes, it is.
properties.
What about heirs? If I gave my farm to the conversation, I died, and my children didn't want that to happen, are they blocked in?
Yeah, once you have an easement, you always have an
So
easement.
I can go on
So-
forever, so I.
Yeah. There is, we can actually provide you, we've got a very comprehensive landowner guide that answers a lot of questions about easements. And so if you're thinking about it from that standpoint, I can get you a copy of one of those and
Well,
you can read
one
all
other,
of them.
one other comment you made, and I may be wrong about this, and I am wrong about a lot of stuff, okay? But, you talked about a watershed being, and this is what, like 20 or, I don't know how many counties it is. Is that a watershed, or is that a development district, or what is that?
No, I mean, that area that we cover is just a county service area that's been set and expanded over years by our board of directors when people in different counties come to us and say they want to do
Is
conservation
it
easements.
in every county in the state of Kentucky in a watershed?
Oh, yeah, every
All
place is in
I want
some
to
kind
make
of
sure I
watershed. Yes.
understood what a watershed was, okay?
Yes, yeah, every place is in a watershed, it's just that those counties aren't a defined specific watershed that makes us work in those counties versus other counties.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Judge, just a couple of clarification items. You know, PDRs or property development right programs can look at a lot of things. We could identify highest and best use farms that are set by state standards as agricultural. We have a few of those, minimal because they took all of our good land away for other counties, right? But gave us this valley. But there are many aspects to this program that could be beneficial to many types. Today's discussion was really focused on waterways and as a form of assistance, if you will, to help us create health and vibrancy and access to those kind of places. But I just wanted to ask you before we let you get away, some resources for us to look at otherwise. We've talked about comprehensive plans specifically. Woodford County, I believe, has a fairly extensive focus on this area. Are there other places that you could recommend for us to look for that we can ask our planning staff to help us sort of craft some initial vision statements if we're interested in this?
So Woodford County has done a really good job in their planning, and they actually, within their comprehensive plan, they define out some specific areas of additional regulation for some of their best farmland or water resources. And so seeing how you might be able to pull out areas and define areas differently, they're a good resource for that. We're also doing a ton of work with them right now through the NRCS programs for purchasing conservation easements. And so they're a good example. Fayette County is a good example. I mean, they're probably a lot more than you guys want to be in Franklin County, but they do have some good examples, I think. And I'm trying to think of other ones within our service area.
The county that I'm working with that's done the watershed plan and has a watershed coordinator funded through the 319H grant is Oldham County. They've got a couple of creeks that they've done watershed plans on. It'd be good to look at it. And then, you know, I think somebody mentioned the importance of recreation to watersheds. Our easements don't necessarily provide for public access. In fact, I don't think any of ours do.
They don't require it.
They don't require it. Some places, easements can include that language. We just haven't had anybody tell us that's important to them. But another funding avenue for those sorts of projects would be the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which has also gotten a huge injection of funding a couple of years ago with the Great American Outdoors Act, or Great Outdoors Act. So that program would allow county governments to apply to, you know, purchase access points along streams to, you know, boost that paddle sport operation or tourism impact.
Yeah, and one other thing is just that the way we work with conservation easements, it's entirely voluntary. So even if the county were to say, we want to put a focus on this particular watershed and we want to help bring this funding in to try to purchase easements, it would still be us working with landowners on an individual basis to get them to be a part of the program. And nobody would be forced to do it. It would all be people saying, yes, I want to do it. In Woodford County, we work with a lot of people who've said, yes, I would love to do it. This will allow me to keep my land in my family. It'll prevent me from having to sell it or divide it for developers. It'll give us an influx of funds that we can reinvest into our farmland, you know, when we weren't planning on developing it anyway. And so I think that it's a neat opportunity, but it is entirely voluntary for the specific landowners. So there's no forced participation.
Squire Tracy.
Thank you. Jesse, Will, thank you for being with us. Squire Wisman, thank you for all your work on this. I guess my question is and you've touched on a few of them. Let's say a landowner doesn't want to sign the conservation easement, but they're all about protecting the creek, things of that nature. And one thing that I guess has been a conversation before is like locators that in case of emergencies, dedicated revenue streams to keep the creek clean to help purchase accessibility. What would be your all's recommendation, or do you all know outside of that? Because not everybody is going to want to sign up. I think everybody that owns property on the creek loves the creek. They want to see it protected, or the river, or streams, or all of it. But I'm not sure everyone would be willing or eager to sign and just kind of forever to put it in a box.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would be your all's recommendation if we wanted to go
The
around?
319, I mean, typically our process is we'll talk to people about easements. Easements are negotiable, so, I mean, there's a few things that have to be in there, but otherwise they're negotiable per property owner and per property. So you might have the ability to build future houses, you can definitely put barns on your property, you know, you can change agricultural practices. So the first thing that we try to do is see if we can work out a flexible enough document that people feel really comfortable with it on their land. Or maybe even there's a portion of their land they keep out of the easement and the rest of it they put in the easement, you know, along the creeks and all of that. But then I think the 319 program is a great opportunity because through that you're creating a watershed-based plan, and then you can ask for grant money through the 319 program to implement that. So that can include things like a landowner, you know, doing best management practices along the creek. And there's no like long-term obligation. I mean, it's just, you know, for the betterment of the creek. And it might include some other things related to the creek itself. So I think that program you know, I think layering the opportunities for people is really great because then you're right, you catch people who are willing to do different forms of protection and making sure that the waterway is healthy on their property.
Another thing would be when the Inflation Reduction Act gave all this money to the USDA programs, it also greatly increased the funding for some other USDA programs like the CSP, Conservation Stewardship Program, I think it is, which can provide assistance to landowners to do things like install exclusionary fencing to keep cattle out of the waterways, which is obviously going to reduce, you know, siltation and runoff and that sort of thing. So that would be a good program for landowners to look at that isn't going to have a perpetual restriction on the property.
Right, and a lot of those programs, I mean, most landowners are familiar with that through, if they've dealt with NRCS ever, it's through those types of programs, and there's an increase in funding in it. So, one thing that the county could try to do is to get the word out to local landowners in those areas that there's more money now in those programs for them to participate.
In regards to the 319 program, is that something in regards to language, verbiage that should be included in the comprehensive plan?
I mean, I think that as a community, obviously the comprehensive plan sets your goals, so I think saying that those are important resources, that you want to make sure that the community is protecting into the future. Obviously, in Franklin County, it brings in a lot of visitors, gets a lot of use. You've got all kinds of resources along the streams that have a lot of potential and that have been growing. And so I think stating all of that, and then you can always, as a community, state the intent to follow through with that with a 319 plan. And so then that would set into place for your planning department to start that process of the 319 program.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just comment, Judge, just want to thank you all for coming today, and it was a little last minute that I asked you, I know, but appreciate the information you provided for us. And, I think for the 52,000 people that live in this community, we're all affected by what happens to that river and the streams around us, and the thousands and thousands of people who live and move here and actively play in this landscape that we have, for lack of a better word. It's critical upon us to start thinking about long-term preservation of our streams, our waterways, our historic resources as well that are along those, our agricultural farmland, all the things that create this landscape that we all love. And there's not a better time than us to do it right now, to set that goal and priority in our comprehensive plan that we can access. That is step one to accessing a lot of these federal funds that our communities never used, that could really help our people that are struggling, farmers or otherwise, that want to do something long-term to take care of these places. And I know a lot of people along the Oakhorn corridor and along the river are really concerned about protecting their farms and protecting their places long-term, multi-generational. So I think these are the tools that we're going to have to best address that. And hopefully this court will be willing to move forward with some of this planning. So appreciate you all. Thank you.
Jesse, Will, thank you very much for your time this morning. Okay, next thing on the agenda is family activities at Lakeview Park. I believe the park committee's talked about this a little bit. I know Squire Sebastian's talked about it, so would Squire Blackburn, Squire Tracy, or Squire Sebastian like to speak to the court on this?
Yeah, I know.
Jerry, I was trying to get him there, but
I got you. So,
I didn't see JW going that way. So
I could feel what was happening.
Yeah.
one of the things that we've made a priority of doing is family-friendly activities that showcase and bring folks out to Lakeview Park. And we have 132 acres of tremendous potential there. We already have a number of features on there, and we're looking to enhance more programs at that park through the plan. One of the things that we want to do is ensure that folks do know that there are, with the costs increasing of everything, in our daily lives, that we, the court, are sensitive to that and want to make activities available for them right in their home community that are no cost. So one of the first activities that we put together as a court previously in an old court was an Easter egg hunt. And we've done it in multiple ways during the changing climate of what we've been faced with. We've gone through a pandemic and we've had to make some changes in how that operates, but we are looking at in March holding an Easter egg hunt either on March 25th or 26th. So we wanted to get like a little input from the court. The 25th is a Saturday, 26th is a Sunday. The reason we're looking to do it in March is the week of Easter also is the week of spring break. So there will be a lot of things going on that week, probably other activities for folks, but we wanted to get just a little bit of input from the court and go ahead and put a stake in the ground for that first family event at the park.
That's a good question, and help me remember, when we did it last year, what day of the week was that held on?
Saturday.
Okay, which we had a phenomenal turnout.
We had a tremendous
Yeah.
turnout, the weather cooperated,
Yeah.
and I've already heard back from just about every group that participated last year, and they have said, just sign me up, blank, whatever date it is, just know that we'll be there.
Thoughts from the court on Saturday or Sunday, or if.
I got a question. Did y'all talk to, Mr. Lewis, make sure there's no conflict on that day, any other thing going on out there that day, either one of those days?
Well, that's the main reason that we're trying to look at this now, because Mr. Lewis, as you know, is out of the country for a couple of weeks. So there's a little issue in getting with Mr. Lewis right now.
I imagine.
Well, he was gonna zoom in because he has something else on the agenda, but the Zoom's not letting him in because he's out of the country. So they're blocked there. But I don't think, we briefly
Yeah.
talked about it with him. I don't think anything's going on
Yeah,
that
we-
weekend in March.
Nothing has come up, but that's the
I don't-
entire reason
yeah.
of putting the stake in the ground. At this point, nothing has been,
Right, I'm sure you checked it all out, and whatever day y'all sides found it.
so we've possibly talked about that. In May is World Cultural Diversity Day. So we've talked about possibly doing some kind of international activity there that brings in the cultures here in Franklin County. So we've talked a little bit about that. We've talked about doing an early movie night to go along with the later movie night that we typically do. So there's several activities that are in play. We just kind of today wanted to share some of those things with the court so that we could actually get stakes in the ground on a few of these early dates, like March, April, May, and then kind of from there, move forward with the court and bring back another set of activities, and then kind of try to roll that out.
Event in the calendar every month.
Thoughts from the court, especially the new court members? Anybody have thoughts? We'll just go one at a time. I mean, the Easter one. Everybody good with supporting that project?
Yes.
25th or 26th, do it on Saturday, since it was.
I think it went well on a Saturday last time.
Yeah,
I think we should
that's
do
It
what I'm
did.
thinking about.
And the thing is that gives us a rain opportunity. I'm not
Right.
trying to just
Yeah.
drag everybody to
Yeah.
this, but
No,
it
yeah.
gives us a rain date. If
Yep.
something happens that day, we could push it back to the following next day. If we plan it on a Sunday, then we're launching, getting too close to spring break week. So that really doesn't allow us an opportunity to do that. And like I said, I've had a number of calls from people who participated last year, and they are anxious to get this on their calendar.
So what would that be again? What would that Saturday be again?
Of the 25th of March.
So let's go ahead and put that down. And then
Looking
the
like
next one,
12 to 3.
Squire Sebastian, will be International Day, is that correct?
Cultural.
Well, World Cultural Diversity Day is May 21st, and that's a Saturday.
Okay,
And so we had talked about, I know I had been approached by a number of individuals in the Spanish community about looking at hosting an event there. I've also been approached by members of the Indian community looking at doing something in our community rather than going out. So it would just be a great day to roll in and showcase the true diverse nature of Franklin County, right here in our backyard.
I'm with it, so that's May 21st,
Yes, it is.
okay?
And that's a national,
Right,
date.
but typically nothing's been done in Franklin County for that
No.
day, so we
So
won't
this is
compete
a-
with anybody, so go ahead, Squire, please.
The only thing that I would think is we need to get with Charlie to check with the YMCA, because they'll have
because of soccer.
fields probably up till noonish.
Okay, that's fine.
So we just haven't gotten that.
Yeah, but at least if we have dates, we can go to him and double check it. And we still have, horse arena area, I mean, there's other areas in the
Right,
park
absolutely.
that we could,
Many
actually put
areas in the
things.
park.
Yeah, okay.
So that just kind of rolls out just a couple to go ahead and
No.
put that stake in the ground
Yeah.
for us, and so that we can go ahead and start promoting that with the members of the community.
I love it. Any other comments from the court on that?
I also just want to get May 10th on everybody's calendar. We have a fiscal court meeting, and there are some plans to do some things after that, that day, so I really don't want to give away a lot of.
Yeah, let's keep that one.
But
Yeah.
just note that May 10th, don't bolt out of this
Yeah,
building
don't make
after.
plans.
Yeah.
Don't
we're
make
gonna- We're gonna
plans.
do stuff afterwards.
Yeah, don't make
Yeah,
plans.
We'll announce at a later date. Go ahead.
Squire Sebastian, do you have any, June, we want to go ahead and knock out like a quarter? Go ahead and plan a quarter?
Well, there had been some discussion, that's typically the longest day of play. We've hosted that a number of times at Lakeview Park, so it would be great to solidify that activity at the park and then possibly cap that off with a movie night.
Okay.
Is that the 21st?
What day in June is that, as far as Sebastian?
It's either the 20th or the 21st.
And let you all know.
And it's always the longest day of the year, it's the Eagle.
21st is the longest day of the year.
So there it is.
Squire Tanner, let you know, I guess Charlie Lewis is able to listen to the, he's watching us, he said either day for the Easter egg hunt is okay with the park at this point, so he's kind of technical.
So the thing is what we really, without saying it, we really want to put a hold on both days for rain. That's the main thing, because once you announce an event like that and you tell your children, you know this, as soon as you tell your kids we're going to an Easter egg hunt, if that Easter egg hunt doesn't happen, you hear about it now for the next 2 weeks. So, we're just trying to be mindful and plan appropriately.
I appreciate that. It's all good.
Are you going to tell them how we do the
It's garden for
Easter bunny outfits? Obviously, we'll have to get one more, considering we got
We have 3 new
ones.
members?
Yeah.
We got 3 new ones, so.
Yep,
Just,
2 over there, and 1 right there.
That's right.
I want a pink one.
well,
I heard that.
hey,
I'm
there's,
setting you up.
What about the company of the attorney?
There's no reason we don't have it. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah,
Well, if I have to
So-
do it, you're doing it mine.
good deal.
Always do.
Thank you very much, Squire
Thank y'all.
Sebastian. All righty.
Thank you, Court.
Yep, we're gonna keep moving. Number 2, authorization to approve minutes from regular meeting of January 31st, 2023. Any questions on that? Next one, we have a visitor, Mr. Copley. I'm gonna ask him to come up and speak about the memorandum between the city and the county on a housing study. Good morning, Eric.
Morning, sir. Morning, Court. Happy to be here, visit my old Fiscal Court family. As I've spoken with most of you about this topic, the need for a housing study has come up with a lot of our discussions with our comp plan process, as we've already heard commented about this morning. Essentially, the purpose of conducting the study is to get us some data to help inform the decisions we make and the language we include in the comp plan. I think it also can be useful data to let us know when we go to the next step, look at our development codes to see if there are some clues for regulatory reasons why perhaps the market isn't addressing housing issues. And I know we all, I think, are at least anecdotally aware that we have some housing challenges, and I think the time is right for any number of reasons, in my opinion, to conduct a study of this nature. End of 2022, got with Judge Wells to help us form a selection committee to do this, because in our discussions with our comp plan consultant and between Robert and I, we recognize that the value of doing a housing study, if it didn't include the whole county, would be sorely lacking. So we put together a selection committee that included 2 city employees, 2 county employees, and then we had 2 other folks from the community, Rich Rosen and Harry Carver, who had expressed interest to staff in this topic. And so we formed that selection committee, all worked together to draft an RFP, put that out, scored our consultants, interviewed a couple, came up with the choice of using Points Consultants. The city has now entered into an agreement with Points, and they're beginning to collect data and start their process. And then we had legal counsel provide this draft MOU to the county attorney for you all's consideration to hopefully share the cost with the city so we can complete this important study in time for it to inform the comp plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Before I ask for questions, I just want to clarify. So this is for the complete county at this point, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not just city, it's city and county housing study? Yep, okay. Right.
Eric, you referenced that this started under the last administration. Who were the 2 representatives from the county?
Initially, Robert and Tambra served, and then as Tambra transitioned away from employment with the county, the judge appointed Mr. Tippett. And so Mr. Tippett helped score with the rest of the committee. So Andrew and Robert were the county's ultimate appointees. Myself and Blair Hecker served for the city.
How many firms turned in bids for this? Just get me close.
I think like 5, a handful.
Okay.
Yeah, and then.
There's more than one. More than one.
Yes, more than one. Yes.
Just thought I'd ask. Any other questions for Mr. Copley? Bar Sebastian?
Thank you. Thank you for coming today.
Sure.
Can you say, on page 7 of this document, talks about a steering committee, notes that. Could you tell us who's going to be part of that steering committee?
As I just mentioned, that steering committee is Mr. Hewitt, Mr. Tippett, myself, Ms. Hecker, Rich Rosen, and Harry Carver. So the same committee that we...
I thought those were the RFP, that was the RFP selection committee. So are they serving in
The idea
more
was that
than
they would
one
continue to serve.
fashion?
Once the consultant starts the study, there isn't a heck of a lot for that committee to do. Its real hard work was drafting the RFP and then choosing. After that, really, the professionals are going to do their work. So we, as the documents mentioned, that committee is still formed as such, informally to sort of monitor the work, but, you know, we won't be meeting to put our thumb on the scale of what, you know, happens with the study. We're going to let the professionals that we've hired do the work.
So I'd like to ask the court if there's an opportunity, because it sounds like there are a presence based on the makeup here. There are individuals that have concerns, I would say, you know, very closely tied to the city's concerns, and then we have a couple of county staff. But the makeup is 6 individuals, you know, and typically on committees, we go for an odd number, and there's a reason to go for that odd number in case there's a tie vote on things. So what would the mood of the court possibly be to look at a member of just the county community to add another voice to this opportunity, if that is something that can, because it's transitioned from an RFP writing, and I'd really be interested in seeing that, working on that RFP, to now steering the process, and that's a critical longer term part of this process. But again, I don't know what that would do to the work of the committee, because trying to potentially ramp someone up, but again, it would bring it to, if there is any kind of debate that's a tie on things, or a discussion or any discord, you want to be able to move items forward.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if you had any situation like that come up with that 6-member body at this point.
Not
So
thus
just-
far, but, you know, it's an informal committee, you know, formed on
It
the
is
advice and
informal?
counsel of the city manager and the judge executive at the time. So, I mean, I'm certainly not opposed if the court wants to have us add a member.
Okay. I just wasn't, and so you're saying it's not really a formal group, because it calls for one in this, it calls for a steering committee. So I'm trying to make sure if it's formal or if it's not formal.
Good question.
I mean,
I'm just trying to make sure I understand, that's all. And where that possibly is
it's
going
a
to go.
formal group in that it's referenced in our documents, and it has done work to this point.
Okay.
It is not a formal group in that it is not a committee that has been formally appointed by the Board of Commissioners of the Fiscal Court, right?
Okay.
It does not have a formal authority, if that makes sense. And Matt can correct me if I'm getting astray, but that's what I mean when I say it's an informal group, as we do often when we form selection committees for different
Well, the reason I'm asking is because where it talks about it on page 7, the only reason I'm asking is it says, following this meeting, the steering committee and the project team, they're going to come up with a shared vision and goals. So to me, that's a pretty formal thing. I mean, if we're coming up with shared goals, and we're coming up with context for this, and timelines, and project milestones, that gives them a little more skin in the game than to share back to respective bodies. So that's the only, I mean, I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting it, that's all. So is that something that potentially the court might
I mean, I'm fine with doing that. I mean, I think it's a
be
good
looking
idea.
at, having a community, somebody from the county,
Yeah.
unincorporated area of the county, just to
And if that
make
gives
sure
us, you know, satisfaction, because I know as I've talked with several of you all, one of the things in the way we've set this up is also to make sure that we get what can be perceived as an objective study,
Yeah.
you know, for all parties. So if in the interest of achieving that goal, the court wants to do that, I certainly don't have a problem.
So if board members want to kind of nominate people and, you know, send them to us or whatever, we'll.
How, does this need to be moving on? Because how long was this offer good?
The city has entered into an agreement.
Y'all already entered
It's
into this
moving.
agreement, so the $33,000 is locked in, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. if it's not a problem, then either way, I don't see a big falling out. We have Robert on there and you on there and Andrew on there. I know we could use another one maybe or maybe not, but I don't see how it could possibly be much problem moving forward or doing a housing study is what it is. So how could it be leaning one way or the other? It's just a housing study, not financing something.
It's not necessarily, and the thing on page 7, it talks about how that group's gonna work hand in hand to make sure that the vision and those things. So all I'm saying is
Well, maybe
those
that's
are, I think they're.
bad
critical
language in the
things, so.
contract because we ain't any vision, they're just gonna do a housing study. Am I wrong?
No, sir.
Okay. I just wanna make sure I'm straight.
That's good. On page 11, I'm looking here and it notes that the community survey will be targeted to city residents only. So maybe that's just a portion of it. Maybe
Yeah, then that.
under this community survey, it specifically says the community survey would be targeted to residents within the city of Frankfort and designated growth areas.
That is a typo, that's not true. We obviously, it's a.
I was just very concerned
It's
about
a city
that.
and county housing study, so any survey we complete, which is something that we intend to do, will obviously be for the entire community.
Okay, so if this has been signed, I mean, we're sure that part of it, just make sure that it is truly community oriented. So when I saw that in there, again, which is why it took me back to the 7th page, so I'm just
I don't
saying.
have a problem with putting somebody else on there, but I also don't have a problem with not, put it that way.
And I saw in here, there's an individual maybe that's involved in some of the study and work on the paddocks from the firm. So is there already some data that, because there's a housing component projected and prepared for the paddocks, is there any of that data that can help inform the process so that that already just brings some data into it? Just wondering.
I mean, I would assume that because the principal of this firm has also previously done the work on the paddocks, and
Yep.
obviously that's data that would be in their possession
Sure.
that would help inform this study.
Absolutely.
Perhaps it would even make it more efficient for them to perform the study because they've done some of this background work,
I
at
would
least
think.
specific to that site. And without getting into the details, I imagine that that's one reason why this firm's price point was particularly affordable relative to some of the other ones.
Oh, I'll bet. Okay, so that's the end of mine. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tracy and then Squire.
Yeah, just a couple things. And I'm not sure how far you all have dove into this, but just off the top of your head, do you have any idea how much vacant land or developable land is inside the city limits?
Vacant and undeveloped?
Yeah.
Not a great deal. We have very few large undeveloped parcels within the city limits. Most of our work that we see with new development is redevelopment. There are some, we reference the paddocks. So the paddocks and the associated other developed land around that is probably the one largest series of contiguous parcels within the city. I can think of a couple others that are what I refer to as semi-large. But, most of the property within the city limits has been developed.
So when this is over, they'll come back and they'll identify, let's say, lots that are developed that may be ran down as opportunity?
I don't know that they'll identify specific properties in that way.
Okay.
I don't think that's the purpose. I think it's more about saying, these are the needs this is what the housing demand we have in the market. These are the housing types perhaps we lack, and should endeavor to encourage the market to supply. There may be some references to general locations, particularly when we do the survey.
I
If
wonder-
people, some of the other surveys I've seen with other housing studies, one that Lexington did a few years ago, the survey portion they did as part of that, they asked people about the amenities, the things they were looking for in housing, and what they weren't able to find. In their study, they asked questions about generalized location. Were you looking for housing downtown? Were you looking for housing on the west side of town? They broke the community into several chunks. and then ask people to identify if there's a particular location they were shopping for housing in. So we might get that kind of information, but I don't think it would be specific to that granular, hey, you should redevelop that piece of property for whatever housing. That's not really the intention. It's more about learning about quantity and then types and that kind of information and what the market's driving and then why we're not meeting that market. To endeavor to fix those gaps and then also to inform the decisions the advisory committee makes on the future land use map and the rest of the language within the comp plan, to bring the best document we can through that process, through the planning commission, and ultimately to you all for adoption. And then also to communicate, as I mentioned, I think it's important, my opinion, as well, to have this document to communicate to our local development community. And that's one of the nice things about having a firm that has done a lot of this work nationally, because they've probably seen housing types that perhaps our local development community isn't familiar with. Maybe they haven't developed particular things. And so I really hope that as part of this, some of the communication of these housing types and this market demand is maybe things that our local development community isn't aware of. And now this document from a consultant can say, hey guys, there might be a market for X, you know, and this is from folks that know what they're doing to communicate to you that perhaps that's a risk worth taking, investing in.
Okay. Judge, just to maybe ease some of the concerns of the body, would anybody be interested in serving on the committee as a member?
I actually would. I worked in housing for a really long time, and one of the things I said when I was running is that this is something I wanted to see happen. I think affordable housing in this town is sorely lacking, and I'm thrilled to see this happen. I've seen these studies before, and they are super helpful in just helping the community, you know, figure out what we need that we don't have. I mean, you know, I work at the Sunshine Center, so, and I work with other providers that have a huge homeless population, and we don't have enough affordable housing. We can't get people into housing. We have to keep them in emergency housing for far too long. So, first of all, kudos. I'm thrilled that we're doing this, but also I would be happy to help in any way that I can on this study.
A few questions, Judge?
Square Sebastian next.
Just one more question here. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Planning Director. I apologize. I try to do that so the right way. I know that. Outside of here, I'm great on that, but I try to do it the right way here. Timing on this, obviously we're past some of the time frames in here. So when is it really going to kick off? I mean, obviously we've discussed that some of that Paddocks information will help inform the process. But I'm just trying to get my arms around the process because, as I understand it, it's pretty rapid time frame, 3 months.
So yeah, 3 going on 4 month time frame, as you can see, and obviously in the initial scope, it imagined that we could have gotten this moving faster. And
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Things don't work out that way. So we, as I mentioned, the city has entered into an agreement just here in the last couple of weeks, I suppose.
Okay.
So they've begun collecting data and starting their process, so that clock is started. So we're in the beginning of February, so 4 months, February, March, April, May, hopefully by the end of May, we're completing this.
Okay.
Which I think should time reasonably well with our process of working through the future land use map portion of the comp plan, hopefully. That we can, and certainly the hope is too that even before this study is entirely completed, we should at least have, hopefully along the way, some data points. Perhaps we can share with the advisory committee along the way. That's my hope. Yeah, to inform that process.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a question I had, Eric, about the time frame with this. Do you anticipate any delay or further developments that are going to expand as I understand, the comp plan was anticipated to have a final draft by the completion date of this study? About that time, but
Yeah, I believe this spring in our project calendar, we had hoped to have the first draft of the comp plan out, and the hope was to have that adopted by the end of the summer. To be perfectly candid, I think we're going to end up having more meetings than we had originally had on the project schedule, particularly for the future land use map. and possibly for the other chapters for drafting. So I expect the comp plan, regardless of the housing study, to take a bit longer. I know a lot of folks have been, in a hurry, want to get it done. And I think Robert and I have kind of repeated during this whole process that we appreciate that and we're trying to work efficiently, but much more importantly, we want to do it well and right. And so however long that takes us to work through that and get the advisory committee to feel confident in the work that they've done and that they've been heard and that the input we've received from the community has been heard and we have a good document, that's how long we want to take.
Good, that's my concern. Artificial deadlines don't help anyone. In this study, there's a focus on primarily on local need, and it's projected for 10 years to be, what the need is through 2033. We've got an aging population, and Frankfurt is already in some ways a destination for certain populations. I think we know our city is a destination for rental housing options because more than 51% of our city, it's estimated, is rental housing. I'm a little concerned about the scope of this, and I guess I'm asking for what ability is there to manipulate the variables slightly to look at longer-term need, especially with the boomer generation aging, and what regionally may be more desirable for Frankfurt to serve based on some of the need that's already being pushed here rather than exists currently.
I know in our discussions with the consultant, we talked about as one aspect of the housing issue, the aging population and the needs for that older generation. And as their housing needs are transitioning now and the need to provide, to get some of these folks that are, probably in suburban, single-family detached and maybe want to downsize or move towards senior housing at some point as they age. And I think, once again, anecdotally, we probably can all agree that we don't have what we need for those populations. So that's certainly something that I expect them to be thinking about as part of the study. To your question about whether that includes an assessment of a regional need, I would assume that as part of their analysis of what our demand is, that would include any assumptions that they need to make about whether there's a regional push from populations outside that want to be here. I would imagine that's part of their analysis. Obviously, we're focusing on what our needs are, but in order to know that, you have to also know, do you have an influx of population? Do you have people attempting to move here that can't find housing? And what are the demographics of those people and what housing needs do they have?
Or intentionally, we've all discussed through multiple plans, downtown master plan, otherwise, of a desire to attract a different type of demographic than what we have currently, whether that is retirees or young professionals or others, to make this a more vibrant community. That's going to depend somewhat upon the available housing. So I'm just concerned that this study is focusing on all those external elements and not just on the feedback that our residents give currently as a snapshot of what this community thinks it needs currently. We need to be looking 10, 20 years into the future, which the comprehensive plan is identified, or effectively that tool to do, right? So I suppose that answers my questions, but the contract's already entered into, but I guess the question more so is just, is there any flexibility to look beyond some of these aspects if something develops that we want to focus on more so? And of course, Kelly would like to serve, but I'd be more than happy as well to be a representative.
So it's brought to my attention that part of what we're voting on today is not only that, but then we have to, there's an actual MOU that basically states who the point of contact is. I would like to just put Robert Hewitt on it since he's our planning director, because the city's is going to be Eric Copley. Any thoughts on that? It's just point of contact, I guess, for the firm. They need stuff to talk to the community about.
That makes sense.
Everybody
Makes
okay?
sense to me.
Okay. So, Mr. County Attorney, we just vote all that under one thing? Okay, Corey Tracy.
Just one quick question in regards to, I guess, the final report. Obviously, there's a task force, but will we, or do you see a joint meeting with the city to get the final report, an overview from the consultant? That way everybody hears the same thing, there's
I
no.
like it. You know, we keep talking about doing quarterly reports with the city, so it might be a great opportunity to have something scheduled. I know that's probably not Eric's deal there, but I think it's something that I could.
Right, and I don't recall in the scope of services there necessarily being a plan for a joint meeting. I know that as part of the housing study.
Well, surely they're gonna come back and present it to somebody, right? So
Yeah.
it wouldn't matter if we pulled the two boards together
Yeah.
and just do it with the committee. You know, maybe no comments, but it would be a good opportunity to get us all
That makes
together at the
sense.
same
Yeah, so
room.
we-
They do it one time.
We've done that before.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
there's a precedence
I like
for that.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think it was stated that they're the ones that's gonna be driving it, We may have questions for them, how they got to this, or how they got to that. That way it would be easier for us just to ask them how it happened.
And I would hope that if we're equal partner in paying for this, we'll also be equal input and be contacted by each of our districts respectively
Yeah.
by these consultants to have some time with them as well.
Yeah. Everybody good? Eric, thank you very much for coming and presenting this morning. It helped
Thank
out
you,
a lot.
thank you.
Next item is the approval of bonds. I think there might be some questions on this, so we can talk about it if need be. Constable, because he did not have his paperwork ready when we did the other constables, that's Bob Davis, I believe. And then he has requested a deputy, so any questions on that? Right, Tracy?
I do. And I spoke to the county attorney. So the constable is elected for a district, but it's my understanding the deputy does not have to preside in that district that he may be serving under.
I'm gonna defer.
I think the new statutory scheme that went in place has several requirements regarding deputy constables, but residing in that district, I did not see that as one of the requirements. It was just over 18, county resident, no crime of moral turpitude. There were several other requirements, but not that they specifically live in that district. But I can go back and check if that's something that the court wants to see.
Okay. And then I guess my next question is, what is, and maybe it's in here, is there a justification for having a deputy, or is it just coming and saying, I need a deputy?
When somebody requests a deputy, it's honestly up to the judge executive, but I wanted to bring in front of the court, you know, because I just want to be transparent.
And does he say,
Yes.
If you don't want to allow it, then we don't allow it, you know what I mean? I go either way, we're just here to talk about it.
did I
Why
just
can't-
miss it?
I'm just backing up what you said. Actually, it's if a county has a second-class city in it, then the county judge can allow deputies. I don't know if there's any say-so by the court or not, but
I
anyway.
respect y'all's opinion, so that's why I'm bringing it up. How's that?
Since he wasn't elected by the people and he's gonna be appointed, do you have to formally have some kind of document in the record where you have appointed him?
He has to be nominated by the constable,
Has to be nominated by the constable and approved by the judge or by the court?
and there are qualifications set forth in those that statutory scheme that person must meet. So it is a nomination by the constable with approval by the county judge.
But we could set a higher bond if we wanted to for the deputy constable, since they don't have to be consistent, do they?
The court can set the bond
Whatever we want to set it at.
for constables, correct. Minimum amount set forth in the statute is $10,000, so there is no.
I don't,
It says the court has to accept that, and that's the court's.
Right, Becky?
I feel confused. I'm just trying to figure out why, that's all.
Squire Wisman?
Judge, do we have any constitutional liability? I guess it's not the right word, but since we didn't have a approval of this, has this constable been acting in any official capacity? Are we aware of in the period since January 2nd to now?
I don't believe so, because I think he was just, I don't personally know whether he's been active. I haven't been asked to look into that.
I guess
I think he was just recently sworn in.
my question was what was the delay and providing the information here to be approved by us for over 6 weeks?
Great question. I believe the constable has some health issues, and so it was hard for him to get sworn in, and I think that's why the request was made for deputy, basically serves papers. But like I said, I know it's ultimately this seat position, choice, but I want you all's opinion on this one.
So that was my,
We're all.
That's fine, hey, that's why we're here.
You go ahead.
Well,
And maybe I'm just missing it. How much does that cost the county for a deputy? Just nothing? It costs nothing? Okay.
And I believe the deputy put bond up too, right, or will.
He gets, okay. Okay.
Part-time.
because I don't, since, he is appointed, I think we should, the court should decide whether or not, number one, he can have blue lights ever, and have the ability to run that kind of service. Now, if he wants to serve papers is one thing, but I don't see, I know listen, I've seen a lot of counties.
There's been
they'll
no
have
request
deputies
from this
chasing
constable.
people down the interstate and everything else.
There's been no request from this constable to have blue lights.
Well, I think it should be denied if they should be.
Solely serve papers is what they're wanting to do. That's what
Serve
they've done in
papers.
the past.
He may serve one on me, I don't know, but anyway. I don't want him chasing me with a blue light down the highway, or my wife, or my daughter, or somebody else. Sorry, I'm just not for that.
Yeah.
so a follow-up, there may be some health issues that keep the elected person from doing his duty. So that is the request. Is that request for a deputy permanent for the 4-year period? Okay. I'm sort of the opinion that I don't want to get into additional positions that are not of the elected body. If there's some circumstance that constable cannot fulfill his duties, I would prefer to see them step down and then it becomes your appointment to make, right, at that point.
For our black friend.
Mr. County Attorney, do you have any recommendation or thoughts on this?
It's the court's pleasure.
Advice?
So is it the feel that I get that it's okay that we go with approving the bond for the constable, but we remove the deputy constable?
I'm not saying that.
For now.
I think we could double his bond and not allow blue light.
There's been no blue lights, they're not allowed to have blue lights. Barclays.
Would it be possible to just get some sort of justification? How many papers is he serving? I mean, is he serving 5 a month, 3 a month, 100 a month?
So can I ask a quick question? In all seriousness, like if this is a disability issue, we need to think about that. Like if there's a disability involved where this person cannot, and I don't know this person or the situation, but if they can't do this, if that's the part of the job they can't do is serve papers, I guess that's something to think about.
But I think when you run for an elected office, you run knowing the full range of duties that you're going to perform.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come down on the side of someone who's ran for office here and now indicates that they need additional help in doing the duties. I think we're trying to do the things that are right by the people who elect people to do these jobs. Well, I'm probably going to come down on the side of constable ran for office. Constable needs to be able to handle the duties that are set forth in the Constitution, because that's the only reason I think constables are still around, aren't they, in the Constitution?
They are in the Constitution.
And if they were not, as I understand it, almost from everybody's lips, they would be gone.
And if you want to look at both sides of that, I try to look at it from all directions.
As do I.
It's no cost to us at all, and he's required to have a bond to serve papers. So I think it does help a service get performed at no cost to the community. There's just both sides of it to look at. I think I agree with Squire Tracy. we could just get a little more justification, a little more background and abstract of what's going on, I think it would answer a lot more questions. And
At this point, just we move things along, I'm gonna go ahead and leave the constable on there, and I'm pulling the deputy constable at this time. Okay? We'll keep moving. Authorization to receive treasurer's report. I believe Amy is in training today, so if anybody has any questions, Kim says she can answer any question you throw at her.
I will try.
She actually didn't say that. She said, whatever you do, don't have them ask me any questions.
come on.
No questions. Next one, number 7, I'm gonna ask Mr. Robert Hewitt to come up. What? Oh, I'm sorry.
Tab 6, we need to go.
Oh, I'm sorry, payment of bills. Is there any payment of bills questions for Kim? I apologize.
I got a general question, probably not necessarily for Kim, but just so I'll know without having to study. Pauper funerals, the county's obligated to pay for those, I think. Do we have one of those this time?
We do. I sent an email out like yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
And the supplemental bills for 1,000.
Does that rotate between all the funeral homes here, or is that set in our resolution somewhere that says this is what we're gonna pay?
We are required to pay up to $2,000. It is up to the funeral homes. Well, not up to 2,000, I'm sorry. We only budget a certain amount of money every budget year. We usually budget around 1,000 to 2,000, and it's up to the
There's
funeral
probably not
homes
very many, I know.
to submit a request to the county to pay.
Squire Tracy, Squire Sebastian, you want to speak on this?
Sure. So typically in the county's budget, we have for the past few years budgeted $2,000. We've had a draw on that one time in the previous court of $500 for a cremation. It is a very rarely used line item in our budget, however, we have had some history of using it.
Well,
I have been contacted by a member of the community and about an individual within the community who had absolutely no remaining family and no means to be buried. So the individual was actually allowing someone to live on their property because they had no place to live, and then passed away. So I'm not trying to give all the circumstances. However, we do have some paperwork that we identified back that was created in like 2000, 2001 that limited the amount that the county could pay for this type of service when it is called upon and requested. There's a form to fill out. It's been filled out by the funeral home that is going to take care of that. In the past, it was my understanding that funeral homes bid on this service. What has happened in this instance is the individual said, I'll do my best to cover whatever else is out there because this gentleman has nothing, and no one called the funeral homes to find out what they could provide the service for and found the least expensive to do it.
I understand all that. I was just trying to, I know it'd be very, very few, if any, in a year's time, but I just wondered if you rotate them around or not, and cause usually it's a loss for all of them too, and you're actually asking them to provide a service they get nothing out of really. And I just wanted to make sure that in my own head that I'm sure the rules already been set, and I just wanted to kind of know what they were. Where are they buried?
A cemetery has given a plot freely to do this. In Franklin County. No, it can be anywhere in Franklin County.
Anywhere in Franklin County that he gets a plot.
That's correct. So a cemetery.
The person.
The cemetery has given a plot, so that's going to take some of the expense off. But I think this is something that the Administrative Services Committee needs to look at because this paperwork hasn't been revisited since like 2000, 2001.
Well, usually when you have a pauper burial, you are a pauper. Well, you don't get much. Hauled out in the back of a road department truck. That's happened.
I can't comment on any of that. What I can comment on is that, that there was paperwork found here. It's quite old. we need to revisit that. My recommendation would be to look at it in administrative services and update that, and update the process.
But for today's purposes, we
It's in
have
the bills.
$1,000
Correct,
in the
it's in the
bills to
bills.
approve, so
No,
that's
that's
kind of what's
fine,
before us
I'm all
today.
in on that, don't get me
It's
wrong.
in, and there's money in the line item in the budget to do that.
Perfect, go ahead.
I have a question in regard to, tab 6, page 1, and it's item 01-5070-507. The P and Z contribution, and it says for its board member insurance. Is that, do you know if that's part of the $11,000 encumbrance that's already in that line item? If that's why that's there?
Yes, part of that is that.
Okay. Then on page 2, 01-5086-571, those exceed the budget in the line item. So will there be enough in 01-5086 category to cover all those expenses for the remainder of the year? We're gonna have to do a budget transfer.
It will have to have a budget transfer.
Okay. Looks like it won't be much, but something. And then, 01-5091-318, they're 9 laptop users. So are they unique users of just laptops? Or do those laptops also, whoever they've been assigned to, or maybe they're in a pool, are they in a pool? Or if they've been assigned to staff, does the staff also have a desktop? So we're paying for multiple licenses for usability. Do you know the answer to that?
I believe some of them are assigned to other staff. For instance, I have one, and I also have a desktop. I can't remember exactly who has the laptops. Andrew can speak on that.
Well, maybe that's something we just take up.
Yeah.
My only question was, is if they're in a pool, that makes sense, because whoever needs that, you know, to go out in the field and do whatever, that's a great thing, and I know that's used very frequently in a lot of places. If you're assigned 2 devices, and they both have the same computing power, then one's just sitting there idle and it's not available to others who may need it, so I'm just asking for
I can
that.
speak on that. We have a couple that are kind of assigned to a pool. Most of them are assigned to a general user. However, like the treasurer has one, I know for sure. The grants writer has one. You know, we can pull it if necessary. We can reassign them. You know, I know a lot of them use them when they go to conferences, you know, or out, you know, working in the field. The user licenses are for Microsoft Office, and this brings up a bigger issue in the fact that, you know, almost everything's going towards a subscription-based model. Typically, most of our machines have perpetual licenses from Microsoft, but we're going to eventually have to be kind of moving away. Microsoft doesn't really like that, and they're moving away from that perpetual license model. So that's what that is for. They're for Microsoft Office licenses. Most of these laptops are not quite comparable to desktops. They're more like field equipment. So they don't have quite the same computing power, and most of them were purchased during right around the COVID pandemic when we had to start sending people out, you know, to do remote work. And at that time, as you know, it was whatever we could get. And so most of them are not like super high-powered laptops.
So I think that's something else we could bring up in the Administrative Service Committee, so I think it's a good thing to talk about. Because I know another thing we did this week was kind of look over cell phone bills and trim some stuff, and we found some things that weren't being used anymore. So we, you know, some hot spots between the coroner's department and that were here that weren't used anymore. So we just did that last week as far as get those turned in and, you know, saving some money. So, great question. Anything else?
On page 3, 01-9100, 332, says there were voicemail issues for P and Z. Is that not covered under our regular phone plan? Or is that just something that just happened in that area and nobody else had those voicemail issues, or is it not covered in the phone plan, or?
Andrew knows more about this one, so he can speak on that one as well.
Andrew,
So,
so,
we don't have any service agreement per se. So when there is an issue, and there was an issue with planning and zoning's voicemail, we reached out with our contractor, and we don't have any like set agreement. We just pay him per call, and that's the issue. It was broken, there was an issue, and he came and had to work on it.
Okay, so that may be something else we look at. With some of the road staff going to the developing leadership skills and communication training, which was great because it was noted in their bills, 02-6105-569. Is that something that we can note when we go back to KCO, that we've had some folks there? And I don't know, John, was that everybody or just like leadership? I'm sorry, Mr. Road Superintendent.
No, that was just a few select people, the new people coming in.
Okay.
That's part of their training.
That'd be something that we want to make sure and we note that they're getting these trainings, and that's great. We appreciate every time somebody gets training like that. Thank you so much for doing that.
any other questions?
Judge, I just wanted to make a request, in our recurring expenses, I've been meaning to ask this, but our streetlights, I'm wondering what kind of inventory we have of those. We have, I assume it's not a typo, we have 2 on Country Lane that are $353, whereas, 16 on Buena Vista are $457. I'm assuming that's because LED and old sodium bulbs, but I was wondering if we could get a breakdown of sort of what we have, or an inventory. I know our Energy Committee hasn't met yet, so good to go ahead and request that and have it ready for future conversation, because there's some wide variability in the expenses of those electrical bills.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Robert wants to speak on that, I believe.
Good morning, Court. So the difference in the light bills for streetlights is because, the old high-pressure sodiums were on a multiplier. So when we submitted a streetlight request to the plant board, say we would like to add one, it's added to a single meter rate, okay? Then when the plant board started transitioning over to the LEDs, Country Lane was the first place to receive that, so a new meter was placed. So now all new LED lights go on that multiplier, or that meter, okay? So it's X dollars a month times however many streetlights you have. So that's the difference between the two.
I just wanted to get an inventory of what still is sodium versus LED, essentially, right? For
I have that inventory on my GIS.
Thank you.
So Robert, if you don't mind, if you can get that together for the energy meeting, that'd be good.
Be happy to.
Thank you. Robert, I think if we're done bids, you might stay up there. I'm gonna let you take number 7. Everybody good with number 6? We're gonna move on?
Yep.
All right, so I have Robert, and then our county attorney's gonna speak after Robert Hewitt. Go ahead.
I'm going to be extremely brief. This is an ordinance for a zone map amendment. With that, I'll reserve the remaining amount of my time for county attorney.
This is a matter that was previously before the court, and as you heard earlier, has been sent back to the court. So I think now is the appropriate time for the decision to be made, how the court wants to address this matter. The Franklin Circuit Court gave us a pretty clear roadmap. We've got 3 options on what we can do. Base it solely on the record from planning and zoning, or we can have a evidentiary type hearing, which we take testimony, or we can have an argument only type of hearing where just arguments are made. And so one of those 3 options is what we need to figure out what the court wants to do in addressing this issue. And so I want to go ahead and have that done now at this first reading so everybody knows where we're going.
I think because we've got some new folks on the court, I'd like to request an evidentiary hearing regarding this request for the zone change amendment.
So you're from everybody on this one?
I'd support that as well. given we have nearly half the fiscal court that are 6 weeks in.
I think that would be helpful for me to.
Other court members? So we have three options: sole and record, evidentiary hearing, or argument only.
I'm good with the evidentiary hearing. There's
There's four. Guess where we're going then, looks like. So, Mr. County Attorney, what's our next, what do we do next?
In knowing somewhat of the history of this matter, we may want to do that at a special hearing date as opposed to a regular court session.
be here all day.
So we may want to go ahead and figure out what works in the calendar to be able to get that special hearing, to be able to put the appropriate notices out. So, but we can, like I said, I just wanted to see what the court's preference was at the outset of this, so we don't get down the road and get ourselves in hot water.
Right, Tracy?
Can that hearing be started in the morning? Thank you.
He just asked for one.
Barbara Blackburn.
Is there a time constraint
That's what I was gonna ask.
on,
Testimony.
no, I mean, is there a time constraint on, I know the planning commission gave
Date.
a recommendation to the court.
I think it needs to be scheduled sooner rather than later, so we can go ahead and confront this right on.
Is there a,
Let's not kick this can down the road too far.
No, I'm just asking, is there a time constraint based on the recommendation from the planning commission? Because in my limited knowledge, if they make a recommendation and the court doesn't act within a prescribed amount of time, their recommendation stands. And that's it. I'm with you as well, and I'd like to expedite it, get this in front of us so time doesn't make this decision that we actually
The opinion of the
do.
Franklin Circuit Court was entered on January the 11th, 2023, so it became a final order of the court, let's see, just within the last few days. And so we've got a little time, but I wouldn't, like I
Right.
said,
is that 30
my thought
days?
process was possibly the next meeting, but if we're going with an evidentiary type hearing, I would recommend that be done at a special hearing. That way,
If we,
we can go ahead and get that scheduled. And I can work with the county judge executive on getting that hearing date scheduled.
Right, yeah.
there could be some conflicts, especially with me. Tomorrow, I have to be out tomorrow afternoon, so if you want to meet in the morning by,
No, we
Adjourn,
have to have
sir.
at least 48
That's not-
hours.
that's
He
not-
was kind of joking, but yeah, we're gonna, yeah.
I thought you had not very much notice time, you have more than that.
It'll be more than.
I'm not gonna be here at 3 o'clock tomorrow, believe me, I'm going to.
Question. To have an evidentiary hearing, what type of notice, could you explain
It's
who
the
will be
same
able
notice
to,
that will be for a special hearing.
who will be able to be a presenter? Will this be open to the entirety of the community and otherwise to make?
The same as it was in front of the commission, so people are gonna be able to present the testimony.
So minimum 48 hour, but I'm asking what type of time frame would?
So you're gonna be at
So you're
least,
saying people have time limits and think does the whole event have a limit?
No time frame to let the public know that this is coming up. We would need,
Yeah.
at a minimum, I would think,
It's just
a
special
few days.
meetings, same.
next week, next week, I can't do it this week.
Yeah.
So, Mr. County Attorney, just to make sure everyone's clear, this is a start over. Throw everything that you've got in regards to this project away. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't necessarily say throw everything, because we'll have to have some testimony from staff that has probably already been presented, so getting rid of all the facts, I mean, they're gonna be presenting, I don't know what'll be actually presented, because I'm not the ones that's gonna be presenting that, but the facts will be, that you have to make the findings of fact on, are gonna be from this hearing.
Correct, you can't use prior
It's gonna be
information.
from this
Exactly.
hearing to make your decision. If that's what the court said, it's gonna be the information that was from this hearing.
All right, thank you. All right, number number 8 here, authorization to go into closed sessions, discussion of hearings, advice, legal, appointment, discipline, or dismissal of
Judge, I'll read that. I still think we have to. I'll move to go into closed session per KRS 61.810, subsection 1, subsection F, discussions or hearing which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of any employee.
Second, third.
Who wants to do motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I made the motion.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
we had a
That was
motion.
the motion.
Laura Blackburn seconded the motion.
Okay.
Aye.
Go
Aye. We're
All those
voting.
in
I'm
favor
just
say-
saying,
All
aye.
those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All good. Sorry, Sheriff.
No, no.
session on today, February 15th. Roll call, please.
Squire Sebastian,
Here.
Squire Blackburn,
Present.
Squire Darkis,
Here.
Squire Tracy,
Here.
Squire Tyner,
Here.
Squire Weissman,
Wisman, present.
Judge Miller,
Present. All right. Item 2, authorization to approve minutes from regular meeting of January 31st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Number 3, authorization to approve a memorandum of agreement between the City of Frankfort and Franklin County Fiscal Court on a housing study.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve fiscal court orders for a bond for the Franklin County Constable Bob Davis.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passed. Number 5 has been taken off the agenda. 6, authorization to receive treasurer's report.
So moved. I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Payment of claims. Is there a motion to deny payment of any claims? No motion was made. Let the record reflect claims are to be paid. First reading of an ordinance amended the table of special ordinances, section 1, zoning map changes of Franklin County Code of Ordinances for a 85.388 acre portion of property identified as a portion of tract number 1, parentheses 84.08 acres plus or minus, a portion of PDA, map number 087-00-00-031.00, and the portion of tract number 2, 1.331 acres plus or minus, a portion of PVA map number 087-00-00-031.01, located at 690 Duncan Road from Agriculture AG to Industrial General District IG. No vote will be taken at this time. We will get a date for that evidentiary hearing. Hopefully we'll figure that out today and we'll get that sent out to everybody. Authors, okay.
last page.
Yeah, we're jumping through all this. All those have been tabled for now until we have some more information.
Item 10
Yes.
has been tabled.
Item 10. Do I have to say that for all of us?
I would say
Just item 10 has been tabled.
Okay. But as far as all the park employees and stuff, we're gonna wait on those. So I need to go that individually, or can we just? Okay, perfect. So we are down to authorization to appoint Greg Smith as a part-time building inspector.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to appoint Tina Peck as planning and zoning development planner.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, do we have anything for other business?
Judge, I have something just very quickly. Our planning director's still with us. At the November 4th fiscal court meeting, the court had voted to remove the RB zoning from the county's code of ordinances, section 155.085 relating to residential recovery facilities, and send that information over in a resolution to the planning commission for action. So that's almost been 15 weeks. Has that been taken up by the planning commission? I haven't heard anything. I don't think the court's been briefed on what actions the planning commission's taken on that matter. So can you tell us or advise in that regard?
It has not been forwarded to the planning commission. The planning commission does not have a meeting in December. We already had a full docket of public hearings in January, so I will get it on the next available date. They do have bylaws that limit the number of public hearings they will take on per meeting, which is 2.
Anything else on the business questions?
Can you tell us where we are or where we're at in regards to, I believe it was Twin Pines, there were some issues out 421, is it?
Pine Woods?
Pine Woods.
Yes. So the developer has received the punch list. They are working through that. I provided them the actual field notes that John Mitchell and I took. during that inspection last year. I'm in communication with the developer now as to the reduction in his letter of credit or release of the letter of credit based on the improvements that John and I agree that have been completed. But I will retain a letter of credit, or if actually, we'll put a check of his in the escrow for the remaining punch list items for repairs, which include curb sections, repairs from curb inlets, riser on a storm sewer manhole, things of that nature, so.
What about the trees?
The trees, the developer says the trees are installed in their entirety, so that'll have to be field verified. Trees have been installed per the neighbor's request up along 421, that was coordinated with the Frankfurt Plant Board, Water and Electric Divisions. So if there's a concern about street trees, I'm happy to reach back out to, I think it's Mr. Morse, or
Morgan.
I think he was, I guess their sort of official representative.
Thank you, Judge. Could we possibly schedule an upcoming committee of the whole meeting for a dual purpose? One, to volunteer at the soup kitchen, which would allow us to interact face-to-face with members of our community that may face barriers to housing, who may not be included in the city's research component for that housing study, from what I saw. I think that'd be a great place for us to see folks and get to talk to them one-on-one.
Okay.
And no action, obviously, since it's committee of the whole,
Okay.
but it also puts us out there doing some good for the community and demonstrating what's in the heart of these public servants that I have the opportunity to serve with. But it gives us that face-to-face opportunity.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
If it's proper, I'd like to ask that you invite somebody from a plant board to come here and discuss how they're coming along on their broadband band installation and what their plans are for the future and their portion of the grant money that's been awarded to them in their territory, et cetera.
Yep. Sounds good.
I would really appreciate that too, because
Okay.
I think for
Yeah.
some of us new people, we're a little out of the loop on that.
Okay.
I've got one really small thing.
go ahead.
At the last CARES Coalition meeting, we are getting together, just all the various nonprofits in town are getting together, just information about the nonprofit, kind of what services we provide, those kinds of things, but also volunteer opportunities. And we were talking about, and I don't know if this is allowed or okay, or there's not, or there's a good reason not to do it, but we'd like to link the CARES Coalition website to the county's website, just so it's really easily accessible. And that way, we don't have to link every nonprofit to the county or anything like that. It just goes straight through the CARES Coalition. Does that sound like something we could do, or is there a reason not to do that?
Do you think somebody could go, I know there's been a lot of questions as far as where that whole CARES coalition and things are. Do you think
I
it
know.
could be a time for?
I'm there every
maybe
week.
they could
I
come
mean,
and
every
present?
month. I'm sorry.
I think it'd be good if somebody could come and kind of present as far as where it is and things like that.
Yep, we can do that. I think Janet Gates is really interested in coming and
Okay.
speaking anyway, so.
That sounds good. It brings us all up to speed as
Yep.
well, Tracy.
Would it be possible to get a list of who's signed up to be a or who's volunteering to participate? with
Oh, for the CARES Coalition?
Yes.
Yeah, we actually just held, it has now been turned over to all of the directors of all the nonprofits. At least the nonprofits that have said that have applied to be members. So that's where we are at this point. It's going really well.
So we can get a
actually.
list of members?
You can get a list of members, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, I'll send those out to you.
Thank you.
Any other business? Next thing we're going to do is constitutional officers, department reports, and committee updates. Ms. Brittany, I saw you slide in, so in case you're wanting to talk.
I just have something quick. I had sent you all an email. I have joined a new collaboration of sorts. It's called Keep Kentucky Beautiful. It is pretty much an organization that spans the entire state. Now, not every county is participating at the moment, but we are doing a kickoff event, and we're going to have a press conference at Lakeview Park on, Monday, February 27th from 2 to 4 p.m. Lieutenant Governor Coleman is going to be there to issue to read the proclamation issued by Governor Beshear, designating the first Saturday of March as Keep Kentucky Beautiful Day. And what we are doing is statewide there will be a plogging event. Now, if you've never heard of plogging, it is the act of picking up litter while running, jogging, that sort of thing. So we are not going to have our event that weekend, but we're going to have it the following week on March 7th. About 5:30, 6 o'clock it'll kick off. I'm partnering with Save Lusher, and and the Frankfurt Striders, and we're gonna kind of meet that Tuesday night, and I'll provide everything needed, and then we're gonna have a group of people go out in the community and pick up litter. So y'all are more than welcome to come to both events. I would highly encourage you to come to the press conference if possible. And yeah, if you have any questions.
So Brittany, let me ask you a question. What about us that are maybe not runners? We still allowed to participate on such a runner challenge, maybe?
Sure.
Let's define who's invited.
Sure, no, anyone and everyone. The Striders have a lot of folks who do walk their routes. There's families who push strollers, there's families who walk dogs, you know, all sorts of things related to that.
Sebastian.
Just a quick question, are the Striders gonna just do their route downtown? So is that all this event on March 7th is gonna do is downtown Frankfurt?
So they're gonna do their normal run, but I can send folks out to do other sections too. Lisa Unger and I haven't totally worked it out since she's kind of runs the Striders. So we'll have a couple routes that people can take.
It would be great if we did some things out in the unincorporated area of the county, since we're the county.
I would agree.
Just downtown.
Thank you. Just one quick question. The Keep Kentucky Beautiful group, how does that intertwine with the solid waste?
So it's a bunch of people that have gotten together. It's not just government, it's not just like government offices. There's a few like nonprofits associated and stuff, and basically we all have knowledge of beautification efforts and litter pickup and things related to that kind of thing. So we're all trying to get together to share knowledge and have events and plan things like that to work together to beautify the state.
So this Keep Kentucky Beautiful will kind of run parallel with the solid waste committee? Ideas will be bounced off?
It's brand new. It was created over the summer, and I just got on, I would probably say November or December, to help plan this event. So this is the first major event that they're going on and doing. And I think the rest of that will kind of flesh out after this. So we're having someone from the state Division of Waste Management office. I think the director of waste management is coming, and she'll be speaking on behalf of how our organization is actually working towards the goals put forth by the state, and how we kind of tie into like how how the state utilizes taxpayer money for litter abatement, and we're just trying to bring awareness to that fact that taxpayer dollars are spent to clean up the community because people like to litter.
Thank you.
So we have signups have just opened up?
Yeah, and signups are open this week for the Trash for Cash program. They opened on Monday at 9 a.m. and they will close on Friday at 4 p.m. Right now I think I have like 22 groups signed up, and I have somewhere between 20 and 25 spots. Haven't totally fleshed that out.
Trash for Cash, you didn't mention that before.
Yeah, it's what the litter abatement funding is used for. So every year the county, through me, we apply for litter abatement funding from the state. Typically that's based on population size, road miles, and there's one other factor that gets put into it. So each year we receive a certain amount of money. This is my only grant that runs on a calendar year period. This year we received about $37,000. We would have typically gotten about 50 or so, but because the city is also eligible for this grant, they kind of take a cut of ours since they're within our solid waste management area. With that money, the primary spending goal is litter abatement. So that is picking up litter off the roadsides. It doesn't count for creek cleanups or taking anybody else taking items to the landfill. It's basically anything associated with litter pickup. I can also spend some of that money on education and advertising and things like that. But the primary goal is litter abatement. So a lot of communities do what they call the Trash for Cash program. It's a fundraiser for nonprofits, school groups, things like that. When the signups are open, they're required to give me information about their organization and their W-9 to prove that they are a nonprofit organization. And then depending on how many groups sign up versus how much money I have, we break it down into somewhere between 20 and 25. Like I said, it depends on how much money I get, which varies each year. And then the groups that are selected are assigned a 15-mile route, which the routes in the past have been put together by myself and Billy Joe Giles. Just he's out there all the time, and you know, we're able to identify areas that really need cleanup. Sparrow Sebastian has also, you know, mentioned some areas in her district. So if you all see roads that absolutely need maintenance, please let me know, and we'll make sure that that's on the next list for priority. But anyway, they get assigned a 15-mile roadway. They have to clean up both sides of the roadway, and for each mile they clean up, they get $100, up to $1,500 total, and that's for fundraising for whatever they need in their organization. I supply all supplies needed, including safety vests, signs, litter pickers, trash bags, you name it. It's been a very good program. We've had, I mean, it's not really competitive at this point anymore because it's not the first 10 groups that sign up immediately get a spot. But we do have quite a few groups who come back like every 2 years because we have, like, if you participated last year, you're not eligible this year, to give everybody kind of a fair chance.
You can't. There is no 4-lane highways included in their pickup areas, is it? I know the interstate or not.
No, trying to think. I don't think so. We try to keep groups off of like serious main roads.
I believe they passed that, by my memory recollects, whenever they passed that law, it excluded the interstates for sure. You could not put the Boy Scouts out there.
Right. So the state has their own highway crew that actually picks up litter. And then we are, however, in charge of exit ramps. So typically, that's something where I can call the jailer and have
So exit ramps are included in that grant money?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think they would be either, but.
Yep. I just had a conversation with the state employee who oversees that grant about 2 weeks ago.
Brittany, thank you very much for the update. While she's talking about that, I did talk to the jailer yesterday, and he has been sending multiple crews out. Andrew has some pictures, maybe if just the crews from the jail out picking up pictures. If not, that's okay. I'm not sure where they are. You all might recognize that road, but they, I believe they're out almost every day now picking up trash. So we'll kind of compose some lists. If you all want to send them in, and then we'll relay all that message to the jailer, just so he doesn't get bombarded individually from everybody. And we'll see if we can get this. But ultimately, people need to stop littering. You know, that's the.
It's I mean, we're literally spending tax dollars to pick up litter.
That could be going towards something beneficial.
Just dump litter.
Yep.
My first group should be going out probably mid-March or so. And we'll run all the way through to December.
Can you email us and let us know what groups and what areas are out there? I know I've asked this in the past. That way we can go out.
Sometimes they get scheduled like 2 weeks in advance. Other times, other groups kind of just slide in when there's an open spot. So we'll definitely make sure to get that scheduled out.
Thanks.
Good deal. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to ask our new building maintenance man, Mr. Greg Fry, to come up, and I want to introduce you to the court. So is there anything you'd like to say? Welcome to the team.
Well, I'm here. I'm ready to hit the ground running and help Franklin County as much as I can.
Did you get that water heater fixed this morning?
We did.
Thank you.
We did.
Outstanding.
Thank you. Welcome.
We're excited. We're excited.
I'm excited to be here. I'm from Franklin County, so it's definitely exciting. I just moved back from Lexington, so it's exciting to be a part of this community and be able to help out. So
thank you.
That's how I see it. It's not just a job, it's helping out with the community and stuff.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you for stopping by, and welcome to the team.
Thank you.
All
Have
right.
a good rest of your day.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right. We're adjourned.